Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 7:30. Ask everyone to join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. And now the floor is open for public comment.
Good evening. My name is Richard Buck. I have a concern about the operating budget, potential errors in the operating budget. I'd just like to make the board aware of it. Do you have your copy of the budget in front of you? It's the one that's titled 2016 Default Budget that includes the proposed budget.
You have 2016 default budget? Is that what you said?
Yeah, mine's dated 1/4, so I know it's pretty recent. It's on page 5.
Dated 1/4.
This is new.
Which one are you looking at? One is vertical, one horizontal.
This is new.
I have a 1/4.
You don't have, do you not have a 1/4?
No, I do not.
No.
Okay.
The last one I had was 1228.
Correct.
Well, I don't think this has changed, so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
It might not have changed.
We haven't
I don't think it's
gotten
changed.
anything since
What I have
last
to
week.
discuss is the
Okay.
difference. But on page 5, I'm gonna use the police department as the poster child for this issue. Page 5.
Yep.
Second line down, line 113, police full-time officers.
Yep.
If you go all the way to the right, it shows the increase of $10,408. That number struck me as being kind of high, and that's the difference between the 2015 approved budget and the 2016 proposed and default, since those two numbers are the same. Last year, the voters approved Article 10 on the warrant, which gave the for collective bargaining agreement for the police department for a total amount of $10,771. Most of that was for wages. There's some benefits that were included in that. Didn't amount to more than a couple $100, I believe. That article for those wages went into effect April 1st, and voters voted in March, so the wages go into effect April 1st. So for 9 months of last year, the police department got their wage increase. Now, if you look at 2016, the difference between 2015 and 2016 in terms of the wage line, without considering any other collective bargaining agreements, is 3 months. 9 months of the wage or increase was for last year. This year it's 12 months because it starts January 1st. And that means the difference between the 2 years is 3 months, which amounts to just over $3,000. And here, it looks like it's almost a full amount of what the wage increase was for last year. So I hope there's some recognition that maybe it needs to be looked at. I can't come up with another explanation. It also will apply to some other lines in the budget, but I just wanted to use this one as
I would imagine Beth built that number based on
Current personnel.
current personnel and salary and
Yes, sir.
it hasn't changed since last year.
We promoted a lieutenant.
But there are also a lot of new officers hired too,
Yeah,
which is a lower
true.
salary.
Yeah,
And actually, if you look at the default budget printout, you'd see that there was, between 2015 and 2014, there was a decrease in the overall budget, and I think that's because we had hired a lot of new officers during that period of time at a lower salary rate. So I understand there are adjustments made, but I think what you're seeing for 2016 is going to be an adjustment down based on people leaving and the number of new officers we'll be hiring at an entry point. But because you're frozen with the default budget, the number's gonna stay the same. We would actually, in years when we adjusted the default budget, we would adjust it down. So I'm just mentioning it in case there isn't in error.
Can ask Beth to look at it.
I'm not sure where she is.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. Last week, I believe it was last week, or the week before, you approved a donation of what, it's kind of like an AR-15, but it's a Bushmaster M4. I don't know if it was an A3 or A2, a couple versions of that. And I'm concerned about it, and I'm concerned about how it's gonna be deployed. I hope it's not gonna be deployed in the vehicles. I hope it's gonna be locked in some room, and only used when there's a major event in town, which we hope never happens. But primarily, those questions weren't asked. And I think Selectman Leary did ask, are they replacing, or what do you have now? And the answer was nothing, which is, I like that. Maybe get some shotguns. But I'm concerned about the militarization of police. And there have been some articles written associated with that are fairly close to home, like in Boston. And if I could just just take a minute to read this. This is in Boston. It's one of the Boston papers. It says the plans to deploy the powerful weapons, which are AR-15s, triggered a major debate in New England's largest city. Residents worry about a creeping militarization of their local police force, fearing that deploying such rifles on the streets could create more dangers than they solve. Some security analysts agree, seeing the move as part of a larger shift towards the militarization of police departments that has been happening in the rest of Massachusetts and across the country. In light of events, the trickle-down theory to me shouldn't work in these situations. I mean, we're not a major city. I can understand that the need maybe in some larger cities. The comment that really struck home to me relative to our police department was a comment that just happened to me in this article. And it said, do we want police officers who are sent out into our streets to be trained as if, and equipped as if, the people they encounter on their patrols are enemy, hostile targets, as if in a war? Or do we want them to see people in our communities as allies and people they are meant to protect and serve? I hope, the question wasn't asked how these are being deployed, I hope that they are not being deployed in the vehicles. I hope they're being under lock and key, and will never be used. I don't know why we need those. It's a donation, free, yeah, we'll take it. What happens after a 3 or 5 year period? Are we gonna be required to go out and buy the next version of AR-15s? I don't agree with it. And I guess it's a nice toy to have. I like to go out and shoot an AR-15 now and then, but I don't see an application here. And somebody could say, well, it could. Well, it could. Unlikely, but it could. And I would think that the SWAT team would be down here in a heartbeat. But if we have them, I hope they're, again, it's more, I have an issue with how they would be deployed. I hope they're not in a vertical rack in the cruisers. And I hope they're under lock and key in the station. And just a couple more things. I went back to, I had asked a question last week's meeting about the range, and I thought there was a report coming in from Primex. I was told at that meeting there isn't. Have a letter from the lawyer backing up Chief Kelly's request to shut the range down. June 22nd, 2014 minutes. It stated there was a completion of sorry, I'm in the wrong subject. The shooting range, due to low berms, it was temporarily closed because of low berms. There was also a comment about the possibility of lead contamination, which I would think would affect every single range in this country. Primex, this is in the minutes. Primex will put together a report and get it to the town administrator. There was also a statement in there it's going to cost between $80,000 and $100,000. So I guess we're not going to get a report from Primex, even though it was stated in the minutes on July 11th. And if it's the berms are an issue, why can't we just get the highway department to go down there and increase the height of the berms? I mean, I don't understand where the $80,000 to $100,000 cost came from. I don't understand why it's shut down. I mean, we've been using it for 15 years. Seems like there's more to it than just what's on the surface. But I guess we're not gonna get a report. Well, how do we know what we have to do to fix it? And one final comment. When I was looking for that information, I happened to come across a set of minutes on June 22nd, 2014. And it was stated that the completion of Prime, which is a program that Primex puts together, should be completed by July 1st, which would reduce insurance costs. It also stated Kalia will provide an additional reduction. How much did we save? What's the reduction, if anybody knows?
There was a percentage on that prime, right?
There was, but we just got our certificates. We all had to take harassment training, which was part of the Prime, and that wasn't scheduled through Primex until the last one was November 2nd. There is a percentage, I don't have it, but I mean,
Going off memory. I don't recall the percentage.
Oh, but has it been applied already?
no,
Oh, I'm assuming it hasn't. I mean,
it has
we
not,
just
because we just finished certification.
in November. So.
Right.
Yeah. You're starting to put the budget together now, though. Right? Is that gonna be a reduction in our liability costs?
That was the intent, yes.
So we should know what that is now. Can we apply it?
I sent an email today and asked, because we just got our certificates back, I wanted to know. Phil St. Cyr is the one in charge of that. He gave me the checklist. He scheduled the harassment training, which we completed, and I got the certificate. So I don't have an answer for you tonight.
Okay, but I mean, you are putting the budget together. I mean, you have a public hearing in a couple of weeks, right? So I'm assuming you're gonna have that, an update on that and maybe an adjustment to the budget?
We can look into that. We can look into
Well,
that.
it would be nice to look into it. I mean, if there's a cost savings associated with that, I'd like to see
Well,
that.
Naomi did say that she emailed them today, so.
And Kalia will provide an additional reduction. Do we have any information on that?
I do know that was stated when he was here. I don't have the certificate Sean has. We can send over to him, but I don't have the percent on it.
Okay, that would be kept.
That would be something different. I had a checklist of what we could do, but Prime gave us, with Kalia, gave us an additional amount, so I don't.
I'm not sure that it was that linear as far as the CLIA certification leading directly to a reduction in insurance. I may be wrong in recalling the discussion, but I think that what we were hearing was that as you follow more specific standards than what we've had in the past, it will probably lead to less situations that create liability, rather than, okay, if you're certified by CLIA, we take this percentage off. I don't think it was that kind of a direct linear effect on the rates. I think they were looking long-term at what it would do to our behavior, so to speak, that would reduce liability.
Oh, okay. So as a result of becoming part of Kalia over time, we would expect fewer issues.
Fewer issues. That's the way I interpreted it at the time, but I may be.
I don't remember.
I thought it was a
I
percentage.
know we talked
but-
both ways,
Yeah.
but I don't remember because the discussion also included what if we adopted the policies but didn't get certified, and I
Mhm.
thought that he said certification
Was a percentage.
would result in a
Yeah.
percentage, but I could be misremembering that too.
And just one thing about Kalia, it's my last thing. I was looking through the Kalia website, and I know there are some concerns initially when Kalia came in about them starting to dictate force, how big the department should be. And I think the reaction by the people, the board, was that it's not going to happen. It's more standards and policies. Well, apparently it's changed. I just want to make you aware of this. The Kalia is now affiliated with another organization called the International City County Management Association, ICMA. Says this affiliation reflects ICMA's awareness of law enforcement accreditation, not just as best practice, but the best practice when it comes to managing and deploying police dispatch and training resources. ICMA and CLEAR pledged to work together on making accreditation more robust, is their word. And towards that goal, ICMA's exclusive technical assistance provider is another organization. The Center for Public Safety Management, LLC, CPSM is what they call themselves, has developed a leading model process for analyzing police department workload and making recommendations for staffing and deployment. So, I'm gonna ask the board to remove CALEA from the operating budget. The information that was provided to us was that it was policies and procedures. We didn't have any, all right? But now it seems like they're going in a little deeper. So. And they're recommendations. But, you know, it depends on how the
You beat me to
recommendations are. Huh?
You beat me to it.
But I'm just saying, they're getting into that now, so they're gonna be making recommendations, apparently, on staffing and how those people should be doing. I think it's a dangerous precedent. And again, I think this top-down, trickle-down stuff, especially in law enforcement, is dangerous. And I don't think we need it in this town. Thanks.
Thank you.
Frank Campana. I tried to look up the minutes from the 28th of December. They weren't posted, which, you know, that's okay. I should have called the town clerk today and see if she had them. I could have come and looked at them. But I spoke on the 28th in regards to the administrative secretary from the police department, and the fact that there was an officer that, and I'm going to go more specific, a certified officer, which I presume he probably still is certified, doing desk work, light duty. And I know I drew the comment from Tom, well, you know, we don't want to talk about somebody who's not here. Well, yeah, I'm talking about the position. In regards to my comment at that time, it brought the comment from Tom that the person is on light duty and it's a temporary situation. I don't know if you said temporary, if you said situation, but you said temporary anyway. That's what I was going to look and see if the minutes verified that. I wasn't able, I don't think that meeting is posted on YouTube, which would certainly, you know, verify that word. My concern is, and my comment is, you folks have had an awful lot of non-public meetings with the police department. And me being the skeptic that I am, you know, I would like to hear, as a taxpayer, you know, what is my taxpayer money doing that is triggering so many non-public issues, you know, with the police department? You know, it bothers me. You know, I mean, it's all, just like me being up here almost every week. Almost every week you have, you know, meetings non-public. So my question is, and you don't have to answer it tonight, but I would like an answer. When did the person start the light duty? I know who the person is, and I'm only speculating. Probably could go back to, you know, August of 2014. And how long is it going to last? You know, again, my taxpayers' money, yours too. You have a certified officer sitting behind a desk doing administrative stuff. You know, is that the best use of my taxpayers' money that you folks can provide to me? I don't think so. You know, and I don't care about the person, all right, to alleviate Tom's fears, all right? You know, I mean, I hear nothing, and I understand what non-public is. Never been involved with it, but I understand what its purpose is. But, you know, week after week after week, and just as you said tonight, well, you said an exit interview. That was going to be another question that I had. You know, when was the last time you did an exit interview? with anybody that has left recently. But, you know, it's my taxpayers' money, it's my money, it's your money. You know, is it being wisely spent? And I'm gonna go out on a limb, all right? And I don't care when I say this. You know, I think there's, with all that non-public stuff that goes on, it leads me to believe that there are still issues with the police department. When I say, I don't care for me standing up and saying that, okay? So, again, I would like an answer, you know, when this person's likely started, how long will it be, and let me determine if it's temporary, and Tom, you can understand if it's temporary, you can, your definition of temporary.
May I?
Sure.
Okay. We have had a lot of non-publics related to the police department, because we have a lot of issues that are left over from the past, and we have ongoing issues. But some of these non-publics, in fact, are keeping us from stepping into other litigation. And and you said you know what non-public is, which is the very reason that we can't be specific and give you case histories of individual officers or past officers and what's going on, because that would lead us to more litigation. So, you know, I know it may be a reach for you and for some other citizens to just say, you know, you got to trust us on this, because what is being discussed not only is a review of ongoing litigation, but it's also an attempt to prevent future litigation. So, you know, that's
And
where
I
it
can
stands.
appreciate that. And I think, you know, from my statement, I said, you know, I can appreciate that, you know. But the thing is, you know, when you say trust you, okay, well, we trusted it, and you weren't all sitting at the time, you know, that brought all these lawsuits and the issues, okay? I was trusting you, again, you know, somebody could ask me why I don't run for selectmen, you already know why, you know. But, you know, you're sitting at the table, and you take your oath, you know, with a grain of trust, more than a grain of trust, you know. And now we're still suffering from the trust that, you know, we put in you to, I'm gonna use the word monitor, you know, past practices.
You don't think we enjoy non-public, do you? I mean, it's not something that we
No, I'm not.
schedule because we
I'm-
think it's fun or because
I'm
we think we're gonna.
I'm absolutely not indicating that at all, okay? And probably for what you have to discuss, as Tom says, you know, probably wouldn't wanna wish it on my worst enemy, you know?
And you've said many a times that it's much easier from that side of the podium. than
It
this side.
is, but, you know, I have to, you know, for me, I have to know how my money is being spent, not to read it in the newspaper of a lawsuit, not to, you know, come across it and
When it
say-
comes to lawsuits, that's where you're gonna find out about it. I mean, you're not gonna have us come out of a non-public in public and discuss
No,
anything like that. It's just a fact of life. I don't know what we can do about it.
No, I'm just making
It's
that, that's when you find out, you know, when the rubber hits the road, you know, so to speak. But,
He's on duty.
but, you know. I'm gonna trust he knows what he's doing.
But you should monitor it, so.
No,
Right.
no.
Following Frank.
Frank,
But, you know, I mean, I'm gonna reiterate, you know, if we got a trained certified officer on desk duty, you know, that's, to me, you know, maybe might not want to volunteer. It doesn't say why he's there, you know, you don't have to indicate why he's there, but he's there. And if it's temporary, you know, let somebody like me know that, well, that's where my taxpayers' money is going to. He should be out on the road.
I can understand where you're coming from.
Well, thanks.
I can't.
Yeah, okay.
That's about as much as I can say, though.
Like I say, you know, I broached that subject last week, and, 28th, week before last, whenever it was. And it bothered me even after I had said it. I said, you know, there's just, you know, you can use the word transparency, you can use the word trust, you can use, you know, whatever words, you know, that, you know, fit, but there should be, I think there should be more forthcoming, you know, and that would probably instill some trust, although I probably wouldn't vote for the budget, as you might. So that's my concern, and, you know, hopefully you can do something, and I would really, and I don't think it has anything to do with non-public information, you know, again, the time frame from this person, and the word temporary. Okay? So I don't know where I'll get that, when I'll hear from somebody. I'll take a phone call anytime.
Right, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much.
Any other public comment? Okay, department head committee items. Finish the 2016 warrant article discussion. Does everybody have a new copy of the warrant articles? Is enough for?
Yeah, I gave everybody a copy. I put in default numbers. I didn't finish the total, or I didn't have the anticipated revenue, so I don't have the tax impact for you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I would just suggest that if, rather than going beginning to end, that if there are things that relate to the police department, we focus on those first.
That's fine.
Okay, there's no article numbers, so if you go down
There are
to,
names.
right, while Sean is here, the article adds additional 3 full-time officers just above the cruiser line. The 116,745. And Sean wasn't here last week, so to get a number, I kind of, we picked July 1st. Because if it gets approved, it doesn't get approved until March. So to start the process and do the hiring, you'd be looking at July 1st. I'm asking, kind of. Okay, then this number reflects 6 months. Sure. Because last week when we talked about this, we had to come up with the numbers. And I didn't call you at home. Beth and I looked at it kind of optimistically. And these numbers represent 6 months. If you think that's less than that, we can change it to 3 months. But the article also needs to tell everybody that.
And also tell what the following, what the
Correct, the
implications
total
for
would be-
full
right.
12 months.
Right. And that's, this is 6 months, 3 years. 3 officers, 6 months. So if you don't think, if that's too aggressive, then we'll change the dollar amount.
What I want to see, and I don't know the date off the top of my head, is the target dates for academies that are scheduled through police standards and training. For instance, these are not real dates, these are WAG dates. Let's say, for instance, if they had an academy scheduled to begin October 1st. In order for us to have a candidate attend that class, we would have to provide the police academy with an affirmative name. We can't just say the Weare Police Department wants a spot. We'd have to say that Bolton is going to be at the academy,
Not even close.
but 4 to 6 weeks beforehand. So that would, now you're talking the middle of August, we'd
Okay.
have to have a name for them.
Okay.
And in order to get a name for them at that point, if you back out our process throughout, each step of the process, it's conceivable that if it was an October 1st date, which, again, I have no idea, that an April 1st starting, us starting the process then could produce a candidate to go. What has been our experience has been, well, it's been a little bit of a mixed bag. In some instances, we've had tremendous luck up front, but then when we get into the meat of a selection process, the part that takes the most time, the background investigation and the psychological testing and so forth, what we're discovering is that the candidates that looked so good after the written test, after the physical fitness test, and after being interviewed, they haven't passed muster. And unfortunately, we won't know that until several months into the process. So where the first candidate might be the lottery winner, we don't know that. And so it could be that though we would be budgeted July 1st, we may not draw dime one of that until January 1st, because we simply don't know what the available pool of candidates will be.
Is it conceivable that any in the pool could be certified officers already?
There's a possibility, sure, but it's a matter of shooting into the dark,
But
with sunglasses on.
but picking a number.
Yeah, July 1st makes sense, because if we hit that lottery, the money has to be there. We can't say, oh, gee, we'd like to hire you, but it's not gonna be for another 6 months. That candidate's gone. They're gone in a minute. They're gone in a minute.
I think what this says, the July 1st says, is that in all reality, you won't be hiring anybody before then. It might be after, but this is
Yes.
best case scenario
Yes.
that we're budgeting for. But if you start the interviewing process for filling these positions on, the day after the town meeting vote, because it passed, then it's gonna take you probably until then to go through the process.
That is
And
like,
if they're hired after that, then the money's not going to be spent.
that's correct.
It's gonna be available, but it's not going to be spent, because it is a warrant article, so it can't be spent on anything else. So this is like best case scenario as far as the hiring.
Yes.
Naomi, can you retell me that what the 116,745 represents?
Sure. It represents wages for 3 full-time officers, plus the Medicare, plus New Hampshire retirement, plus life insurance, possible education incentive, and health insurance.
For how long?
3,
6
For-
months.
6 months.
For 6 months?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that the rephrasing of this should indicate the 6 months,
Mhm.
and then the cost, as Keith said, of the full year in future budgets.
6 months. Is that,
But that's not.
This is a breakdown.
is
This is a whole,
Does that number represent the 6 month salary and benefits for one officer?
you look at that number. You've got the wages, then you have the cost of retirement, you have health insurance,
Mm-hmm.
you have life insurance, education incentive.
Yeah.
6 months.
Will be asked, does 3 additional officers mean 24/7 coverage? Or
Yes,
does
it
it
does.
mean shifts at, okay, that means 24/7 still does. Not that I suggest we put it in the warrant article, but
Well, it would be
in the
in
explanation.
the mail or in the explanation.
Okay. The next article, we changed around a bit. I'm still not convinced. I had a conversation in regards to cruisers. The numbers we looked at were from Rainham, Mass. But in speaking with Ryan Frisbee, who did all the research and homework, the contract was awarded to Keene, so there's no Mass person involved. The price of the car is I had it 29. Jan, you still got it? That's okay. I have it somewhere here. I want to think it's 29. Well, you can do the math. 124.5 divided by 5. Okay, the base car is 24,900, but the Keene dealership that they're hoping that got the award that will do the lease will not lease the upfit for each car, which is $10,000. So I played around, Jan and I did this evening, trying to somehow word it. It hasn't been run by DRA, has not been run by anybody. We wanted to explain that the 124.5 was for the purpose of leasing 5 new cruisers, to raise and appropriate the sum of 41.5 for the first year's payment, and then to raise and appropriate 50,000 to purchase the related equipment for the 5 cruisers, or to take any action in relation thereto. It will contain an escape clause, and then I wrote, if approved, article blank, which is going to be the budget, will be reduced by 17,000. I don't have a number on there yet. I mean, it's just trying to get out the fact, because we originally saw the 93,505, but that was Raynham Dodge was willing to finance the upfits, and Keene is not. So you have to buy your upfits, and then you can finance your cars. So I'm not sure how we put it all together, and I didn't think putting it in one separate article or the other, because you can't have an upfit to a car and new car. I mean, was trying to keep it together, but trying to be
Well, you can't,
inclusive.
it'd be useless to have 5 cruisers that can't be.
There's no upfits, right.
No lights.
So I'm not sure where it'll sit. I'm explaining it's a little bit different than what we had last week because of how the award of who is the car dealer has come down.
Sean, do you know how this will tie in as far as your trades? Because initially, when the whole thing was being financed as a package with a lease for 5 years, I believe the Raynham company was going to include the lease package in the lease.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
And so your initial year was somewhere around that same amount, which was the
93,505.
93,505. But then the actual amount to the taxpayers would be quite a bit less than that because of your trades that initial year.
Right.
So here, it really doesn't change the yearly amount too much, because the second year in the other scenario would drop back down to the
44.
44, now it's 41.
Well, the number that we had at the time of CIP was 44.
So the total amount that first year is the same, but where do the trades come in? Are they already deducted from that 24.9 price?
I don't think so.
Some of the discussion around the trades has to take into consideration that those trade numbers were put together in July and August in preparation for this process. So, they've had additional mileage, they've had additional wear. Raynham was the company, now they are no longer the contractor for the state of New Hampshire. We don't know what Keene will do. In fact, I didn't know till today when we met with Ryan that had happened, and it went to Keene. So frankly, I'm unprepared to tell you what the trade would do with this.
Just to clarify, so what happened is that the state bids went to Keene
Right.
rather than to Raynham,
Right.
That's correct.
and that's why we've made the change.
Right.
That's correct.
Exactly. That's why we're where we are.
So we'll have to work on the figures, but we get the concept.
I wasn't here on the 14th when discussed this before. How many cruisers do you think the department is required to function properly? And I have an answer, what I think, based on the MRI report, but I was just curious to see what the fleet, in your opinion, should be as far as the number of cruisers.
That's part of what this entire process is about. It's me reducing the number of cars that were authorized from 9 to 7. With the current condition of the fleet, 9 is necessary because we've spent so much time with cars down in the shop. I believe that by going with 5 new cars, we would be able to keep the cars out of the shop, keep them on the road where they belong, and we can operate on that, at that level.
The 5.
7 total. The 5 new.
In different
While
departments.
we're on that subject, if I could, I was asked as I was leaving here, the last time I was here for a meeting, and I was asked, well, would we have to buy new cars or additional cars for the 3 additional full-time officers? And the answer to that is no.
Okay. Do you think a fleet of 7 is appropriate for the size of the
I do.
department, even if there were the 3 additional officers?
I do.
Now, would they be on a replacement rotation in planning at least? I mean, it's obviously dependent on warrant articles, but.
Yes.
And does it make sense then to have 5 out of 7 in the same year, rather than phasing in 3 and then 4 to make it a little bit more?
I hear your question, and though we are making payments over a 3-year period with this warrant, the warranty is actually 5 years. So what my replacement plan would include is that in 2019, 2 of the cars would be replaced with a higher trade value on the 2 cars that are going out the door. Because they've lower mileage, they have more of their warranty remaining on them and so forth. The other cars would still be under warranty for 2 more years. Subsequently, we would the next year we would do 2 more cars, and then the last year 1 car. So that flip that around. We would do 2, 1, 2, and get into a pattern where we would now be trading in higher value cars, getting more dollar out of them, and hopefully reducing, assuming the economy continues the way it's been going, realizing a better value for the trades versus the barely more than records yard value that we have now, and reduce the cost of maintaining a fleet that's suitable for police work.
I'm gonna ask this board to do what I suggested last week that we don't do, and that is predict the success of warrant articles.
All of a sudden,
Well,
idea.
no, that's not a good idea, but.
Who knows?
Well, I don't know as we can predict it, but I think that this plan makes sense.
I'm just wondering if asking for 5 in 1 year has a shot, and if we were to ask for fewer, if we'd be in a better position fleet-wise with the passage of that. Now, again, that's talking about predicting what will and won't pass
But
in March.
I think the chief has brought up his opinion, which was that the cost of one of the 5 cars leased would be about the same as purchasing 1 unit. I'm not trying to put words.
At the end of a lease, do we own them?
Yes.
Sure we do, for $1.
For $1.
The answer was yes for $1. Okay. Anybody else have any more questions on?
It still needs some reworking, but
Mm-hmm.
That's the intent.
Only that, you know, at the rate we're going with repairs, we're paying two-thirds the cost of two-thirds of the base cost of one of these cars each year just to hold the fleet together. And that is going to increase because what I understand that they're reaching a point where they're gonna need work on the suspensions on the cars just because of the type of use that they have. So, you know, that $17,000 that was paid out above and beyond what was in the budget this previous year will be a continuing factor and maybe even increase. So I think that we have a plan that makes sense for the long term, and that we, if we accept that as a board, that then we take on the responsibility of trying to sell it as a reasonable plan. Predictions, well, depends on our salesmanship, I guess.
Okay.
I believe those are the only two that the police department had. The collective bargaining is something that is different that Sean wasn't part of, so those are the two things that, just for the PD.
Okay. If the board doesn't mind, I'd like to jump off of the warrant for a second, and while we have the chief ask if he would be able to respond to a question that was raised in public comment regarding the AR-15.
What would you like to know?
What's the plan for it? How's it being used? Is just a little bit of information about it.
At present, they are locked in our armory, where they will remain until we have a certified instructor teach the officers how to use the weapons appropriately, until a policy is developed that meets the needs of the community. The question was asked of whether or not they would be, or rather the statement was made that there was a hope that they would remain in the station, and that's just not going to happen. The community is 60 square miles. If an officer is called to an incident that requires the use of deadly force to bring to resolution, God forbid that should happen, but to delay their response for them to go to the station first to get the tools that they need, that they've been trained and qualified to use, is asking for disaster.
Thank you.
I actually have a question to piggyback on that. What is the lifespan of that gun? I mean, I'm kind of ignorant to this because I own guns, but one of them is from 1918. And
Sure. And
still
there's-
fires. I didn't know if there was like a lifespan.
There's the firearm you're referring to from 1918. If it doesn't shoot tomorrow, likelihood is that you've lost the pheasant, or the opportunity of the pheasant. If a weapon that we bring into the field doesn't fire when we want it to, there's trouble. With that said, however, we will have qualified armorer inspecting and maintaining those weapons continuously. They'll be subject to inspections almost constantly. And what I mean by that is the assigned users would be required to perform certain functions on them every single time that they brought them out to make sure that they would be useful in the field. By maintaining them appropriately, storing them appropriately, we should get a reasonable life out of them. However, when they do start to show wear, when a qualified armorer tells me that they have reached the point where there is a possibility they won't go boom when you want it to go boom, I will come to you with a replacement plan. Until that date, I don't have a foreseeable future.
What's a reasonable life?
What?
What's a reasonable life? What? I mean, maybe I can use a service revolver. How often do you replace a service revolver?
There are a number of factors that go into that. The number of rounds that have been fired through it, the amount of abuse they've been subject to due to weather. We don't, believe it or not, we don't have a continuous weather pattern that we can predict here. And very frankly, there's user maintenance that goes into it. And I maintain my weapons to a high degree. And though we have inspection processes, in between the inspection processes, there's an opportunity for them to be treated with less than kids' gloves. And so that may have an impact on them. I can't give you a definite answer. There's too many things that can go into it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to predict, down the line what.
If you are reelected twice more, chances are you'll still have those weapons in inventory.
I'm not Tom Cole. I don't have it.
Well, if I'm elected twice more, you give you the same guarantee? I think, I believe that when the policy is created for the use of these, it would be good to share it with the board.
Sure. Happy to. And very frankly, anybody that wants a copy of it, I'll be happy to.
Thank you.
All right.
I don't think you need to stay if you don't. Go back to Article DPW Garage Bond.
Good night.
Yeah, Jan had provided us with some information from the bank as to how the wording of the article is to be written. So your draft has changed to be compliant with the agreement that you, what was that agreement? It was something that we signed last.
Oh, the engagement letter?
Yeah, the engagement letter gave a sample warrant article. So that's what you're looking at right there. The other thing I did give you, Jan provided, was from the bond bank. There is payment amounts for 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years. The board will have to decide that. The 10-year rate is 2.55. The 15-year rate is 2.8. And the 20-year rate is 3.15. Those are all on these here. There's 3 separate sheets. That doesn't affect your article because there would be no payment in 16.
Are those fixed throughout the life of the bond? Those rates?
Yes, but I mean, these are estimates,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
because the sale wouldn't happen until June of 2016, so whatever the rates are, the current rates are then. These were the rates that the bond bank got at their sale last year. So that's what these are based on.
Says in bold too, it's estimated.
But there would be a
So-
fixed rate once you get it, yes.
So the answer was yes, it's a fixed rate. However, these rates
It's an
are
estimated.
an estimate.
Right.
If you just take the interest,
Yes.
you can do your own math, but it's that column. The interest on 10 years is 192. I'm not going to round them up. And then 15 years is 306. 20 years is 445.9. That's just interest. So, what the,
$245,000 difference.
from 10 to
From 10 to 20.
Yeah.
so that
I would be in favor of 10 here.
the interest 192.7 for 10.
I like not having a bond.
306
The Ferrari
Yeah,
property
1,000.
was 10.
and 445.9
Safety
for 20.
complex, I'm pretty sure was, I'm not sure.
Safety complex was 10.
Yeah.
The bridge bond was 20.
Thoughts?
Well, you have to think.
What was the combination, if you have it, maybe I could look at the town report, like the total payment for 2016, on the Ferrante property, that was the last payment, is that correct, or is there one more?
It's listed, it will
In
be,
16, okay.
yeah, 70,
72,000.
yeah, that sounds right.
72,
Principal and then 2,000 interest.
and the bridge bond is paid off, or is that their payment?
That's gone.
And that was the last payment in 2015, and how much was that total payment?
50? I think it was 120 altogether for our long-term debt. So
Right.
120
50,000.
altogether.
About
If we
50,000.
go with the 10-year, where the change in long-term debt, which would come into effect in 2017,
Mm-hmm.
then would be, I'm sorry, what was the total again, approximately?
125.
125, so it's about $50,000 difference, so you're talking about a tax rate change from 2015 to 2017 of approximately 6 or 7 cents. Divide the about 8,000 equals a penny, roughly speaking, I believe.
Well, it seems as though 10 years is a better deal.
10 years is a much better deal.
Yeah, it's a much better deal. What I'm just trying to say is that the tax impact that we would see would be about 6 or 7 cents on the tax rate, above and beyond what we're paying now as of 2015 with the payments on the bridge bond and the Friday properties.
Anybody in favor of going with 10 years on this?
You make that decision in March after,
Oh,
because you don't, the
We don't
payment,
want to have this information as
well, you'll have this,
backup when
you'll
we're
have this
talking about
information with you, but you're not gonna have a payment amount for 16.
No,
No,
but this
but-
is an estimated payment amount when we're talking about it at
Sure.
deliberative session.
Sure.
So we'd want to be all on the same sheet anyway.
We hope. 10 makes the bigger difference, but shorter.
Well, it's an enormous amount of money extra in interest if you stretch it to 20 years. Yes. Even stretching it to the 15, you're adding on 100, and, 2 payments total,
Almost two. Yep.
starting at the beginning, 2
So
early
10?
payments, yeah.
10 seems to,
Yeah. Yep.
okay, so that wording is a little bit different, but it's per the list that we signed. The numbers have been filled in with the exception of the next page. I didn't get a chance to finish that, but I didn't have the revenue either. So to figure a tax impact, and we are gonna use the 824,374, which is last year's net assessed evaluation plus 0.5%, like we've always done. So that's the same number that we're gonna use to come up with a tax impact. School's using the same number. The CBA for the police, the numbers are there. Beth has done the calculations for me for the 16 and 17, which is typically just wages, and then there's an offset for insurance because they're going from 7% to 10% like everyone else. So those are the numbers, which I'll provide you all with this as well. I have just one sheet. This is the top and the bottom as to how we got there. So those numbers, last week you decided of a 3% pool. There's also a sheet for that too, and that's the number for everyone. Right here is the sheet.
It's a really round number.
We didn't do any, oh, I didn't run the past projects for the government list, sorry. Per diem, this changed, I think, a little. Did this change a little bit, Beth, from?
I don't think so.
it doesn't look like it's changed. Yeah, doesn't, the wording you saw last week for the EMTs, EMS. Ambulance is a little bit different. We talk about the 3-year lease, and then also that funding this is contingent upon, there's no article numbers yet. If article passes, authorize the lease payment sum to be withdrawn from the vehicle replacement special revenue fund. If it fails, authorize the selectmen to raise and appropriate $83,000 for the first year's payment through taxation.
Can we go back to the previous article for just
Sure.
a minute? My understanding was that out of that appropriation, we've got like half of it sitting in the revolving fund that will be used toward it.
Yeah, what's in the account now will go back to the general fund. Because it's still paying about $40,000.
Okay, it'll go back to the general
Yeah,
fund.
go back to the general fund.
It can't be used to offset this article. Since it's in the revolving fund already, now I think I remember you saying that last week.
Yeah, but Chief Azina talked about that.
Yeah, I remember.
Because you have to raise it, and then you have the offsetting
Yeah, I
40.
mean, it is gonna be offset, but it's not gonna be offset directly. It's
Right.
because the revolving fund money is gonna go back into the general fund. So we can offset it when we come to set the tax rate by doing that, but we can't do it up front by warrant article.
Okay. The ambulance I read to you. Beth, the forestry vehicle I left blank, but isn't the forestry vehicle gonna have a vote to come out of?
Yes.
So
what
that's
it
gonna have an offset out of the special revenue.
I'm still on the ambulance
I'm
one.
sorry.
If article
I don't have
for
numbers yet.
EMS
Yeah.
passes, authorize the lease payment to be withdrawn from the fire department replacement vehicle special revenue fund. There's, oh,
So your 90,000 would be part of your operating budget, and the
Yeah.
ambulance billing that comes in, the intent, as he explained last week, was to take the lease payment out of there.
out of that
The ambulance billing money.
would go into the vehicle replacement fund.
No, it goes into a special revenue fund.
And then this
Your lease payment would come out
would
of.
come out of the
You get about
vehicle special
100
revenue
and
fund.
I think 120,000 a year. Out of that 120, if the EMS becomes part of the operating budget, the payment out of that 120, you would take your lease payment for 3 years.
Okay. For all 3 years.
Each year you would do that, yes. The 83,000.
If it fails, authorize the selectmen to raise and appropriate $83,000 for the first year's payment. What about payment in years 2 and 3?
The wording has to be, I think we have to make sure there's an escape clause. It has to be done exactly. These haven't been, these are just,
And for year 2 and 3, you can go back.
It's not
to the
DRA
original ask
language yet.
for it to come out of that special revenue fund.
Sure, but if they say no, we have to return the ambulance.
Yeah, kind of escape clause. Yeah.
So now we'll be down from 2 ambulances
To
that
one.
aren't as brand new as we would like to 1 ambulance.
mhm.
Is there any other way to do that?
I don't think so. You wrote the ambulance, the greater lease. We have to add that payment, right? The greater,
It's right now, it's in the operating budget.
right now it is, but I think we have to make an article for the second year's payment of the lease of the greater.
I didn't understand it that way. And in the past, the number 2 ambulance right now was purchased through the special revenue fund with the lease payments being paid for out of that fund.
Mhm.
And we didn't vote each year on the lease payment. We voted to have it come out of that fund.
Right, because
same.
we're asking in the article for a
But-
3-year lease. If
Yeah,
that
but-
passes, then
What Keith said, if the first year is from taxation, you can go back the second year and ask them to take it from the fund. Or you're gonna have to ask to take it from taxation the second year as well.
Guess we gotta,
the way I'm understanding this is we're looking to lease an ambulance, a 3-year lease on an ambulance. And if Article per diem EMS passes, that ambulance payment is funded with the revenue from the ambulance billing.
right,
That's pretty straightforward.
right. If it fails,
If it fails is the questionable portion of this. Shouldn't we be asking for permission to raise the payments for
total,
3
240,
years, not
238.
1 year at a time?
We should
Is
be
it-
asking for the 238,
well, that's what you're authorizing to enter into a lease purchase.
Understand that.
but not just for the first year. We shouldn't be asking for just the first year, we should be asking for because otherwise, like Keith said, after year number 1, then we have to go back to the voters, and if they should say no, then we return the ambulance and we're down to 1.
I think we identify the cost of the first year, but like other warrant
Had something to do
articles-
with an escape clause.
No, I
But we
understand.
don't, I don't think that's, to me, that's not really an option, because having an escape clause,
It,
Puts us in a
remember, it was,
very-
it puts us, and I think, remember, we had a long conversation about the grader, about us, if what is it, if it wasn't up to, if there's
Is
a
that what you're
problem with
looking
it.
up, Tom?
Yeah, and it doesn't, it says there will be an escape clause, but it has a different meaning.
right,
Uh,
that's if Tim didn't, if there was something that Tim felt that wasn't,
Because it,
Didn't need it,
or didn't feel it was working up to the standards that he would be able to get out of the lease with an escape clause.
yeah, but
That's-
it says, shall the town authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into a 5-year financing agreement in the amount of $340,000 for the purpose of lease purchasing a new road grader and related equipment for the highway department, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $71,458 for the first year's payment for that purpose.
Right.
So we've locked in by saying that they're agreeing to a 5-year finance arrangement. We've locked in the following years. There was no discussion of having.
This
to
is
put
worded just the same way.
It's
Well,
similar,
no,
it's similar.
It's, yeah, it's very
but I
similar.
think we need to have that, if
Yeah,
article fails, that $238,100 needs to be raised and appropriated
Well, it
with,
might,
with the first payment of $83,000.
well, I think we cover it maybe in the first portion of this article.
that's what I was
Well,
wondering.
See if the town will vote to authorize selectmen to enter a 3-year lease purchase agreement for $238,100 for the purpose of leasing a fully equipped ambulance, and to raise $83,000 for the first year's payment. Funding is contingent upon, so if it passes, the funding comes from the special revenue
Or
fund. If it
taxation.
fails, it comes through taxation. That's, it just needs to be clear, that's all. Maybe what threw me was it said for the first year's payment through
Well, and I
taxation,
think
which is
that's-
clear because that's what we're voting on for the 1 year. And up above, we're talking about the total of 238.
Okay. And I think that, yeah, I don't know, the wording needs to be adjusted.
That consists of the grader. And the grader goes in the,
We have it in the operating budget.
right, we have it in the default budget too.
Mhm. Yeah, because you entered into a 5-year
Agreement.
agreement for the total amount.
It's a contract.
The escape clause is always, I think it's thrown in there in case it's a lemon. I really,
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think
it's not for the
No.
warrant article although we can add, there will be an escape
Right.
clause like we do the grader, that escape clause isn't to indicate it has to be
No.
revoted every year of the lease.
Which is why you do the total up front.
Right.
All of these, I'll make sure, I mean, Laura hasn't looked at them either. We're just putting them together to try to get the intent.
But Keith, you're saying you don't believe the second piece here is needed, if the article fails,
Well, yeah, I don't think it is, really.
because we've already said that we're going to raise and appropriate the money, and then we're saying if article such and such passes, then the money will come from,
Taxation.
Ambulance billing.
Oh, if it passes.
again,
Yeah.
Laura will probably be able to straighten this out.
It'll make it a little more clear if that's, if we
Yeah.
can eliminate the second part.
In the $60,000, I believe all $60,000, Beth, coming from the? So, the sum of, and the next for the forestry vehicle, it says of the 60, the sum of 60 will be withdrawn. Nothing is through taxation. Jaws of Life, that was straightforward, we talked about that. We talked already about the next two with Sean. Road reconstruction. I didn't change any of that. Loader. Whoops. The skid steer, we took off the offsetting. I do have to change the skid steer one though, because we're gonna offset it with the balance that's in the capital reserve, remember from the trailer?
Just to reiterate, the change from the CIP is that we did not put in an additional truck this year.
Right.
With the loader and the skid steer, we did not add the truck that was
Right.
asked for.
Well,
Yes.
now on the loader replacement, you asked for the tax impact.
I'll have it, I haven't done any of them.
Okay, I just saw it up above it.
There's zero.
Zeros. This one did. So I didn't
Oh,
know if
it's
that
just a
was-
cut and paste,
Okay.
sorry.
I just-
And just like the 8 cents is probably not correct either,
Okay,
because there's actually gonna be money coming from capital reserve, so your tax impact is gonna be the difference. No, I haven't finalized any of your tax
okay, I
impact.
just saw that and it was different than the others.
Yeah. Chase Park, we didn't do anything different from last week. Same thing with Bolton Field. The library staffing increase, that came to you last week. Cemetery construction, that has not changed. Cypre did not change. On there, I don't think anything changed. Till you get to, I don't have a dollar amount. I've not gotten a number either from Fish and Game or anyone else for the improvements to the firing range.
Where is it on here?
Right, okay.
I'm on the very back page. I took out the noise ordinance because you just agreed to table it last week and replace it with safety improvements to the firing range.
Yep.
I've emailed other administrators as well as Fish and Game to see if I could have somebody give us a quote other than what was thrown out there. So I don't have that as of yet. And then there was a email for the very last one.
Actually, I meant to just hand that out, but
Oh,
you
I'm sorry.
already put it on,
I'm sorry.
because I certainly didn't have any authority to put anything on.
Oh.
So I brought copies for people of this last one with an alternative wording as well. But this was brought up in public comment last week about the finance committee meetings and why aren't they broadcast? So it's expanded it here a little bit, but this article basically amends an article passed in 2003 by adding the word committees. And it also changed a little bit of wording because the old one said videotaping, and we don't really videotape anymore, so I just put or record for later broadcast rather than videotape for later broadcast. And then I added the end piece here because we're putting it on YouTube, our board meetings at least, so, or on an internet site determined by the cable committee. So that would cover the YouTube, or if there's another site. Now, I had, just for discussion,
Do you have the article from 48 and
Yeah.
03?
I didn't make copies of this, but that's the original right here, Article 48.
The word is horrible.
The wording is really not grammatical. I did straighten that out.
Yeah. This is the one that passed. 03.
So is there anything we can do to
Not to get ahead here, Jennifer, did you have a question for me on it, or?
is there anything that we can do to have them broadcast? There are people that
That's the
want to
effort.
know what's going on in town
That's
that
the
can't get
intent.
out. So they need to.
Right, and this, like I said, the one that Naomi transferred over to the article on our warrant is the same as the first paragraph on this sheet that I just handed you. And that simply includes committees and straightens out some language,
Mhm.
whereas the other one only had boards and commissions. The second part here for discussion is, should we have an ordinance that in fact mandates certain committees, especially the main ones, because like there's nothing in town ordinance that says even the Board of Selectmen's meetings have to be televised. So I would suggest, or bring forward for your discussion, the following paragraph. Effective September 1st, 2016, the following boards, commissions, and committees will be required to broadcast their meetings or record their meetings for later broadcast. Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, Zoning Board of Adjustment, Board of Fire Wards, Conservation Committee, Finance Committee, CIP, and Parks and Recreation. These are all the major committees. And the reason I put that date was to allow time so that if there's new equipment that has to be purchased in order to make that happen, that there would be time to do that if it passed. So, because even though the first paragraph adds committees, it still doesn't really have any teeth to it. It still allows boards to do as they please, it just urges. And the reason for the specific ones, these are our major boards in town, boards and committees, all that have significant impact on everybody. So I would, my recommendation would be to add that second paragraph, but it would require some time because, for example, we might have to have some recording equipment installed in the
Rescheduling.
rescheduling, or even say in the safety complex. If the Board of Fire Wards is on the same night as the Board of Selectmen and we meet every Monday during the winter, we could look at installing recording equipment. And so that they could have their meetings on site, the same as they do now, but be able to broadcast them at a later date. The same as ours are done now by the cable committee on, so that's the thinking behind it, and again, it's for discussion tonight.
I agree with it, that's the intent of the original article in 2003.
Now, if they say the selectmen refuse to broadcast, is there any repercussion for them? And I'm just using us as an example.
Well, I think there would be, there's people, the committees who have already set precedent, like planning, zoning, selectmen, I think we would face a lot of public recrimination if we suddenly stopped.
But what I'm saying is, some of these committees don't do it.
Right.
What's the
Ramification.
what's the ramification if they say, no, we're not doing it?
Well, that would be, are you specifically talking about finance committee?
I didn't want to say it.
I know, but let's just put it out there.
Stop beating around the bush, the finance committee.
They're appointed by
Moderator.
the town moderator. I would think it'd be the town moderator's job to go to them and say, you guys, you need to meet on,
Which is John Fox.
right now.
Well, this would have to pass through our attorney, but it seems like this second paragraph would be, would require them to.
Wouldn't the
Right,
first
but I think
one
what Jen's
require
asking
them
is
to?
what if they don't, anyway?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but isn't that what the first paragraph is saying? And
First
it was-
It
paragraph.
asks.
Ask, and that would include all, because there are some smaller committees. For example, when we had the highway garage committee, it would have been good if that was televised too, but I don't think it raises to the same level of the Board of Selectmen or the Finance Committee or the Planning Board, where that we're dealing with, the total budget and all of the CIP articles and so forth. And there are also different subcommittees that are appointed by different boards, and so it would allow a little more flexibility there, the first paragraph. The second one would take those major ones and say, broadcast. We now have an ordinance that says broadcast.
Didn't we, a couple months ago, vote on saying broadcast?
What we voted on was sending a letter to all of the committees and boards and commissions that quoted the article passed in 2003. And again, I'm saying this as secondhand information that was related to me. The Finance Committee looked at that and said, we're not a board or a commission, we're a committee, so we don't have to follow this.
And they didn't have to because it asks. It didn't
Right.
require.
I don't know if there was an RSA, or if there is an RSA that says they don't have to. It was brought to our attention that there was, but the RSA was not given.
Well, that's something that we'll review our warrant article.
Didn't they used to broadcast?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was on it, we did.
Yeah, no, I've never seen it. So they haven't done it in 10 years, I know that. I forget what I was gonna say. And here I am, being broadcast. See, it's not so bad after all.
Nobody watches it anyway.
Well, we have that YouTube now, which is
Nice.
very clear.
The YouTube, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's very well done.
My parents watch it.
I'd be in favor.
I would too.
Of the whole thing?
Yeah.
Mhm.
obviously wouldn't have written it otherwise.
That's right.
So it's okay?
So we got that.
Okay, approval of meeting minutes of December 28th.
Before we leave this subject,
Yeah, before, I did remember what I was gonna say. Luckily, it comes back, and then you don't have to worry so much as if it never comes
Before
back.
you lose it again.
And as I think that the local government has a right to write an ordinance that it asks more from a committee, but not less from a committee as far as the right to know. You know what I mean? I mean, we can't go against an RSA. If the RSA said broadcast and we said don't, then we would be in trouble. But I think we're within our rights to go one step further and in the eyes of the voters in Weare to say that we should have these committees broadcast.
Absolutely.
That's
Keith,
what I was-
before the minutes you just got today, but before we take off from the warrant, just to let you know roughly where we are, at the end of 15, we have approximately, after the motion in the 28 minutes to take the accrual out of 15, it did get taken off the proposed and the default. We're at 167,205 left. The reason I ask that is, and I'm just going to throw it out there, there's 2 one-time purchases within the budget requested for the tablet and for some security cameras. They total about $5,000. Does this board want to do those or not? Leave it alone? I'm just asking. Those will be the only 2. They were one-time purchases.
I mean,
The tablet for the ambulance and the $1,500 for the cameras. There's $3,500 for fire office equipment, which is the one-time, the tablet for the ambulance. And then there was $1,500 for additional cameras in police, at the safety complex.
So the tablet would be different than the
Tough book.
tough book?
Well, no, it's a tough book, I'm sorry.
So
My,
so they're looking for a third one?
be a second.
I thought we purchased 2 for them and 5 for...
Yeah, I think we get.
Beth, is it a third one?
I'm sorry, what?
The tough book?
It's a tough book.
Is it a third one? I think Dick brought that up, you're right.
Mr. Buck?
yeah.
you
No, he brought, no, actually,
clarify?
Chief Vizina said that. But there is one in here for one time. I'm just, I just wanted to pose that question. It's entirely up to you guys. You can let it go like it is, or,
2 out of 7, 2 are for fire department.
right? You're right. Very good, Jim.
I leave it as it is, just to less confusion tonight.
Okay, no, but just to let you know, that's where we are.
You can
That's
say
fine.
the opposite.
No.
Uh,
No, and it was nothing more than asking. Doesn't bother me either
I
way.
just saw a question mark Dick, on your face, maybe I was,
Mhm.
but what we're talking about is the amount remaining in the 2015 budget that will go into the general fund, at this point is $167,205. There may be something else still out there, but that's our estimate at this time.
We've estimated, there's a couple of payments out. It could be, if everything that we've got estimated to still come out is already been out, you could be looking maybe as high as 190 that's left.
Okay.
Because we've got some contracts and some fuel, and so, just to let you know. but
Much
that's-
of which will no doubt be used for tax relief.
and like I said, I only brought those 2 up there one time, and just to give you
Lost out on
also,
the minutes.
just to let you know where we were roughly
That
at
was
the
a
end.
side comment.
Thank you.
That's dated last month.
All right, that's a promise.
I think that's we're all set. Okay, thank you. I just wondered if you were gonna do anything before we moved off, that was all.
Meeting minutes of December 28th. I've got some circles, but I don't
I
have
have
any
a question.
suggestions.
Yes.
About these. Can we get these a little sooner than Monday afternoon?
Well, I was not here today, but also Friday being a holiday, we left here Thursday at 1. We've talked about getting them Friday, but this past Friday was a holiday, so, and then I was out this morning.
The past two were, and I actually did 3 trips to Maine in that week, so I didn't have a lot of time sitting to do them. But yes, Friday is the ideal day to get them to Naomi. Even though that's a day earlier than required, but that's the goal we shoot for.
Okay. Just makes it hard to read.
Right.
Oh, I know, yeah, 'cause you had emailed and I was not here.
I thought, and I was emailing to see if Mary was slacking. I didn't know if I missed the email.
Oh, okay,
Yes, I always want emails.
all right.
All right, any,
I didn't have anything on page 1.
I did. I did. Yeah, this is in the paragraph one up from the bottom. Mr. Butt felt a third shift for police department is not needed because state police can respond. He also mentioned the town has not used money from the unreserved fund balance to offset taxes in about 10 years. I think what he said was to offset a warrant article, am I?
Yeah, definitely, because we've used a lot of money to offset taxes.
That's all I found on page 1.
Page 2, first paragraph, just added an ED to comment, he commented. And then on the 1, 2, 3, fourth line down, added D to closed, which closed the landfill. And then I'm not sure I understood the next, I put a question mark near it. Mr. Campana commented, the 285,000 increase with Primex since, commented on, I guess. Yeah, commented on the $285,000 increase with Primex since 2013. He felt the taxpayers should not bear the full brunt of the 285. He felt that money should be returned, and I don't understand if that's what was said, because how could you really return it? So just cross out that last line, he felt the money should be returned.
My comment was that the board has not made any attempt to offset that through the budget.
To spend that much less to make up for it?
Well,
Is that
we
what you-
could.
Was that what you meant, though?
Well, maybe-
Right.
Yeah,
So should
nothing
we-
done to
So we'll just
offset
remove
Primex.
that sentence.
Well,
Don't
what if we-
dangle the carrot.
I think his intent,
Yeah.
Don't dangle the carrot.
He did say that too.
he felt that the money should be offset
Offset in the budget.
in the budget. I think that's more
All right,
accurate than
yeah.
crossing it off. Offset within the budget.
Then down just above the first bold where it says vote, the sentence before that, she suggested the selectmen initial, and I just inserted the word refund. Because it was awkward, they didn't know what, initial refund, which she crossed out in the agreement, so I just inserted the word refund, which she crossed out. That's all I have on page 2. Did I get the same one you did, Jim?
Yeah.
No,
Copy that for you.
on page 2, the last motion on the page. After a lengthy debate, the motion failed, 1-4-0, not debated.
Oh,
to it, but it would have been in future, when there's, you know, stating that there was a lengthy debate, it would have been helpful to kind of just get the brief points of what the two sides were in debating it.
I can go back and add those.
The trouble is, we can't review it again after we,
Yeah, so,
so we'll just change debated to debate.
You want to just write that?
No,
I didn't have anything on 3.
neither did I. Or 4.
4, under administrative report, second paragraph, update to updated. The next line, the noise ordinance will be tabled until next year, but the board will work on it early in the next year. So crossed out B. Board will work on it early in the next year. I think that's what the.
Yep.
That was your intent, and I think Jen, you,
Yeah,
you know.
I can, it's awesome.
And the next line, I crossed out the word next at the end. Because I don't, next what? You know,
Okay.
Next.
next
Next,
week,
no
next,
comment.
that's all I have.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the minutes of December 29, 2015 as amended.
28th.
28th, sorry about that.
Second,
I'll take yours.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you have all of the changes?
I'm not sure. Let me
Just take a vote.
kids too.
Can I ask a question? Dick, did you guys go to Best Buy yet?
What?
Have you guys gone to Best Buy yet?
No,
Okay.
I was wondering what your schedule was like this week. I was supposed to
Normal.
ask you.
Normal?
Are you gonna do it every day? Okay. We'll do it this week, probably Wednesday.
Okay, sure. All right. Yes.
I made those changes now, email them to you.
All of them?
I move we order the treasurer to sign the accounts payables and payroll checks dated January 7, 2016, as included in the following manifest. Payroll manifest $55,376.44 for weekly payroll, including payroll taxes. A fire department payroll manifest of $18,130.41 for monthly payroll for December 2015. A supplemental payroll manifest of $32,737.35 for an accrual payout, and an accounts payable manifest of $25,081.05 for a total of $131,325.25.
Is there enough signatures?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay,
Second.
thank you.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
There was one other thing in there from Wendy. Is there enough signatures on that one? It was from assessing?
Yeah.
Okay. Last
Administrative report.
last week I gave you a package from Tim with regards to snow removal and ice control policy. At that time, you would ask that the back page be the lists of the routes have the employees' names removed. I handed you just that back page. Tim was hoping that you had read it, and with the change that was provided to you tonight with the 3 additional pages, if you would be willing to accept it and sign it. Because keep in mind, in November of 2004, it was also reviewed and still not signed.
That's a problem.
I haven't read it all yet.
Okay. Can we make a point of, what do you want to do, the 11th or the 18th? I don't want to keep bringing it up if you're not prepared.
Yeah.
Which one?
Next week.
Next week.
The 11th? 1/11. Which also brings me, for your homework for 1/11, I handed you a plan and a cover letter and a proposed agreement for the Worthley Road property. The plan is the intent of them to upgrade it. I will also forward you the planning board minutes, which I believe Ricky talked about as far as the rock wall removal. That gentleman would like to come back in on the 11th as well. He wanted to just show up tonight, but not without having anybody have a look at that, and he brought him tonight at 5. So he would like to also come in on the 11th, so if you could have both of those reviewed for the 11th. The contract for the prosecutor, I know we've had public hearings for employment contracts. He doesn't have, he's a contractor, but he's not an employee. The contract expired in December. This is the same one that you looked at in 15 for 16 with no increase. It's the same exact thing that he's doing. Do you want to post a public hearing?
I would.
Does it give a list of what he's done?
Maybe,
Oh.
No, and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
exactly.
yeah, that's, maybe we can get that from the chief.
Mhm.
Just point of discussion, I'll agree with the group on it, but does this differ greatly from our lawn contract, which is a contractors, for contracting the employment of somebody for the lawns, for lawn care for the various departments? And if we go with this, are we then saying next year we're gonna have public hearings on the contract for
I
the
think this
lawn
is
care?
consistent with what you talked about earlier. Maybe the RSA says specific things that we have to do, but there's nothing stopping us from going above and beyond.
No, I know, I agree with that. I just,
And being that it's a single person in a department that we want scrutiny on,
Yeah.
I think it might be a little different than a lawn care.
yeah, well, I'm not gonna go out on a limb for it, I just toss out the, where are we going with it as far as other contracts?
On the 14th, I'm just gonna pass this around. You guys approved a department head request for the ventilation over at the safety complex. Here's the approval form for everybody to sign in regards to that from the capital reserve. This,
Did we already move on that?
on the 14th you did,
Okay.
and he didn't have the form at the time, so the minutes are attached, the quotes are attached, and that form is right there for you to sign. Public hearing.
You here?
No, I wasn't here on the 14th.
Okay, and she
I
abstained,
abstained.
so you're gonna have to put it in the
I
box.
think you're there.
On the 14th? No.
No, he wasn't here.
Okay.
But the board voted, so I can sign it.
Then, just some looking down the list for dates.
I can't see.
Is there 3 on there? Okay, thank you. The finance committee was supposed to meet this evening. We get notification early, they're gonna meet every day. Upstairs in the evening, I'm not sure whether tonight something happened, but, I did post a public hearing for, it's just a general wording, which I believe you all have one, for the 18th. That's when we'll have everything done. Next week, we're pretty much there. I'll send out to Laura to make sure that our wording, because some of our articles are a little confusing. And then the 18th, you'll have a public hearing, at which time you can discuss any of them, and the bond hearing. And then you have to finalize them, because the 25th, you have to sign off on the final copy, and that has to be posted that night before we leave on the same, we have to leave on the same day, so I can get it to the school and tape it on the door for that 25th, so that you have it ready for deliberative session. So the minor wording changes, I think I'll have to leave that to town council. Town council is coming to deliberative session. Laura will be there on the 6th.
Laura's gonna be-
Laura Spector.
Okay,
And it's pretty,
just read it out here.
yeah.
The Weare Board of Selectmen will hold 2 public hearings on Monday, January 18th, 2016, beginning at 7:30 PM. One, for the purpose of hearing public testimony and comment on the proposal of bonding $1,360,000 for the cost of constructing a new public works garage at the current location of 224 Merrill Road. And 2, for the purpose of hearing public testimony and comment on the 2016 overall proposed town budget, including all separate, special, and petition warrant articles, as well as disclosure of the default budget. And the meeting will be here. I have a question as I was reading it, and
Okay.
are we gonna have some detail about, is Tim gonna be here to be prepared to
For the
speak about
garage, I believe the committee members will be here, Steve Roberts and Lori Davis, and probably a few others. Tim will be here, and the police chief and the fire chief will be here, because it's
So should
warrant
we get a
articles.
bigger room?
We've never had a
We've
problem
never had
with
an
that.
issue
Okay, I
with
just
budget
didn't-
and warrant articles
Okay.
in here.
Yeah. That's all I have, Keith.
Public comment. So
He's
it
starting his
means it's gonna
car.
be a short public comment if he starts his car.
Well,
He's-
he's starting his on
Was it take 5 minutes?
It's pretty cold out
Yeah,
there.
5 minutes, it'll be one.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, it is. It's cold.
I just want some clarification on Article, the ambulance.
Okay.
I was gonna say Article.
What's the number?
The article ambulance.
It's,
Yeah, I'm
it's the
sorry,
one you were
there's
discussing
no
regarding,
page numbers either, sorry.
If it fails, you took that paragraph out.
Right.
Correct.
And did you make any changes to the paragraph, the first paragraph?
I don't think so.
It just said, when I see the words at the last sentence, says funding for this lease is contingent upon article, whatever the article number would be, passing, assuming. That means if that article doesn't pass, there's no funding. When you say funding is contingent, that means, to me, it means that it's,
Yeah.
you get nothing unless.
Maybe the funding source is dependent on,
I think it should come out. Personally, I think the whole thing just should sit by itself, anyway. But I think that sentence has to come out. I'll be reworded, because when you say contingent, you don't get it, you don't get it. You know, that article, mysterious number article doesn't
I haven't,
pass.
I'm waiting on zoning to give me their numbers.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's really, I think that's gonna mean that that article is not gonna be funded through taxation if the article for the other one doesn't pass, so. Just,
Okay.
um,
So you're just suggesting we take the line that says
Funding.
funding for this is contingent, take that line out, and then it will make sense by just having,
I think you can just go with the beginning sentence of,
yeah.
Mm.
I didn't appreciate the chief's comments. I was concerned about what he said and how he said it, and, not his demeanor, maybe not how he said it, but, that they're all gonna have these weapons. They're not gonna be locked up. I understand he said it's gonna be a procedure written probably for usage, but I just don't like the idea of them having those weapons. I mean, so there's a call-up knot in Northern Weare. We have to take we're gonna get out of the car with an AR-15 in our house, hands? I know, I'm glad you indicated that you wanted to take a look at the policy before it gets implemented, and I really hope a good hard look at it. I just want to read one paragraph from the newspaper article that I didn't read previously. It's just a recipe, they talk about the AR-15s. It's just a recipe for unnecessary violence and unnecessary injuries and sometimes the loss of life. The idea that your average patrolman in the neighborhood is going to be attacked by someone with an AK-47 That's just speculative fears rather than real evidence of them being outgunned. We haven't had any of these assault rifles, as far as I know. We haven't had any incidents where we needed an assault rifle, as far as I know, in any situation in the town of Weare. If we had that AR-15 and that drug bust down at Dunkin' Donuts, not only would the 2 occupants be killed, I'm sure there would be other people killed. It's a very powerful weapon. So I just don't like the idea of having that weapon in this town. And again, I think the fears from the national level are kind of driving it to the community. And I don't, sure it could happen, but really, do we need these things on a regular basis? I mean, I just don't like the thought, the idea of that powerful weapon.
I don't think we would need it on a regular basis.
No, I share your concerns about, in general, the whole idea of these bearcats in a town like Concord, New Hampshire, or Keene. I mean, in my view, if the state police had one stationed in the north seacoast and southern tier, so that if it was really necessary, they could bring them out, but to have them in an individual town like Keene or Concord is senseless. The other thing that I would agree, it goes along with that, is, and I believe it has been stopped, hopefully, the surplus military equipment going to police departments that do exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I agree we should take a real close look at this.
I appreciate that.
Car's not even warm yet.
Dick? Dick,
Can you start
she had a
my
question.
car?
Do you want that
I know, it was,
information?
it dropped below 10 when I left the house.
Will you read if you want that exactly in the minutes? There's people mumbling. It's okay.
2 quick things. In regards to the hearing for contract, that was my article at the time, and the intent, honestly, I don't remember how it read, but the intent was for personnel contracts, not for, lawn cares and that type of stuff. Because personnel is, as always, it's the largest part of a budget, and you have, salaries, benefits, and all the else, everything else combined. So that was the intent at the time. Again, I don't remember how the article read. And I have a request. It was touched upon looking back at an article last year for the road grader. When it comes time to do the town reports this year, I would like a continuation, I would request a continuation of the salary pages of the police department, the same format. Again, I'm only speaking for myself. It lays out really a lot of their benefits and what they get. I mean, it used to be, details, overtime, et cetera, but I would request that, that be kept the same, continued.
The intent to do that.
Yeah, Beth did it last year,
Okay.
so
For the
she'll do
whole-
it again this
For
year.
the whole town. not
No,
just-
that's broken
Well,
out,
The police
theirs is done
department-
a little differently,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
It has the salaries, it has your hourly or salary,
I'm
it
sure
had your details, it had your education incentive, it had your insurance
I'm sure it's a
buyout,
little bit more.
it had your,
I think
It'll
that
be
was,
done.
clothing allowance, yeah,
right.
right.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, correspondence? I don't have any. Anything? No? Other business? No other business?
You all set, Jen? Okay,
Move to adjourn?
9:30.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night.